All right, everyone. Jeremy Knopf here with another episode of the Public Relations Declassified Livestream. So today we got a couple of great topics we're going to jump right into. The first one is we're going to talk about a little event that happened over the weekend here, how to catch a PR crisis. So this is a case study. Some of you guys may have heard about this on social media. A fishing charter captain by the name of Brock Horner definitely screwed up and absolutely destroyed his business in the process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play a video for you guys in a second. The whole thing was actually recorded, which is incredibly wild. But given that we've all got a camera in our pocket at all times these days, it's not really surprising. But it highlights the importance of really being, on, so to speak, at all times. So the short version of this story is this man, and I use the word man very loosely in this case because he is not much of a man, basically attacked a teenager on a boat over some nonsense, right? He assumed he was somebody else, assumed there was problems, etc. I'm going to go ahead and roll the video here. This is about a 4-minute video. And just go ahead and take a look at this, and then we're going to come back and talk about how this all played out, kind of the impact it had on his business, and how to avoid finding yourself in a situation like this.
The other morning?
What, like 5 in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cussing me out?
Nah, that was the dude in that boat.
No?
Were you the one that came through the middle of the bridge? Was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, I was here, but you ran in front of the other dude over there.
You were cussing me out, dude.
Bro, you ran right through the middle of the bridge while we were all fishing.
In the middle of the fucking night, the guy didn't have any lights on.
Bro, we were all fishing here.
He didn't have any lights on.
All right, bro, I'm not gonna do this with you, bro. I'm not gonna fucking do this with you, bro. Like, it's not the right time, bro.
You know the laws?
Bro, you can't come flying through the middle of the fucking bridge, bro.
No shit. Yes, I can.
All right, bro. What are you trying to do, bro?
What am I trying to do?
What are you trying to do, bro?
You want to fucking go?
I don't want to fucking go. I want you to get the fuck out of here.
Big tough guy?
Tough guy? You pulled up on me, motherfucker.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Nah, shit. I'm fishing, you fucking... Like, bro, get out of here. Like, what? What are you trying to do? Act like a tough guy in front of your buddies?
No, I'm not. Dude, all these motherfuckers know I'm tough, motherfucker.
Bro, all right, bro.
You know what?
Get going, bro.
We're all fucking war veterans. We're all raised.
Well, thank you for your service, bro.
And you're gonna talk shit.
Thank you for your service, bro. But that doesn't give you the right.
Million pussy ass fuck.
All right, bro. All right, whatever. I appreciate you for your service, bro. But you don't got to run through the middle of the bridge, bro.
Dude, if your guy doesn't have his fucking lights
That's
on,
not my guy, bro. That's just another fucking dude, bro.
you have to have lights on.
My lights were on, bro.
Motherfucking lights.
My lights were on.
Somebody hits you, guess what the fuck happens? You die, nothing happens to me.
Right, okay, bro. Keep thinking that.
No, that's the fucking truth, dude.
All right, bro. Keep thinking that.
Put your fucking lights on.
Bro, my lights were on. I wasn't sitting there. Okay, that's not my dude, bro.
Cuss me the fuck out for it.
Bro, I said, bro, you almost fucking hit him. The other dude was fucking cussing you out.
I almost hit him because he didn't have his motherfucking lights on.
Bro, you shouldn't come flying through the middle of the bridge. You know people fish here, bro.
Dude,
I'm sorry, man. I don't know if that's what you want to hear, bro.
yeah, you should apologize, motherfucker.
But, bro.
You're on the water more than you can possibly fathom in your wild motherfucking dreams.
Me too, bro. I'm out here all the time, bro.
I'm 300 days a year on the motherfucking water.
All right,
Every
bro.
day, I'm the best charter captain you'll ever meet in your motherfucking life.
All right,
If
bro.
you cuss me out.
Chill, bro. Chill, bro. Please, bro.
Don't hit the fucking fire.
Please, okay, please, bro. Please, bro. Please, bro. Bro, I'm a kid, bro. Please.
Apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, bro.
You're gonna cuss me the fuck out.
All right, bro.
In the middle of the
No, bro. Please, bro. Please,
Get me back to my
bro.
boat.
Okay. Please.
Fucking apologize.
I'm sorry, bro. That was not me, bro.
Yes, it was,
I know I
motherfucker.
was here, but my buddy was
Take
on the
me
boat.
back to my
Yes,
fucking
sir.
boat.
I'm a kid, bro. Please,
I
bro.
don't care. You don't cuss me
Yes,
the fuck
sir.
out.
All
and
right.
talk shit to me, motherfucker.
Yes, sir.
You don't do it.
I'm sorry, man. I wasn't like cussing you out
Yes,
though, bro.
you were, dude.
I was driving the boat. Okay.
Did you not call me a fucking faggot?
No, bro.
Yes,
that was
you did,
my
motherfucker.
friend on the. Okay, I'm sorry, bro.
That was your friend on the boat.
I'm sorry, bro.
You and your motherfucking friend are look at it and come
Yes,
on your
sir.
side and fuck you both up.
Yes, sir.
Do it again and watch what fucking happens.
Get back on this boat.
Don't fucking do it again.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, bro. Like, I appreciate y'all, bro. I'm sorry, bro.
Fuck with the wrong motherfucker, man.
Bro, yes, sir.
All right. So that was absolutely insane. Unsurprisingly, public response was swift and intense. This guy got absolutely dragged on social media. People pretty quickly tracked him down, identified him. Law enforcement got in the picture relatively quickly as well. The guy ended up getting arrested. But from a business perspective, what ended up happening was he got destroyed everywhere. Social media, he got negative reviews on his business, all completely warranted. You know, this is completely inexcusable. There's no justification for this kind of shit. But his business is essentially over with now. And frankly, that's a good thing. He deserves every bit of this. The interesting thing about this is how this plays out in the long term. And this is something that can happen to anyone if you lose your cool and do something stupid, because everybody has a device in their pocket. Everybody's recording shit all the time. In this case, it worked out well. It caught a terrible human being and destroyed his business. So he's never going to do this. He's never going to have the opportunity to do this again. Obviously, like I said, the reviews everywhere are, 1-star reviews. There's numerous entries in the search results from news outlets covering this story. People are going to remember this guy for a long time. And even if he were to try and start another business, even if it goes by another name, this is still connected to his name. And fixing this problem would take tens of thousands of dollars and months, if not years, to achieve. I've done work like this for people who have had PR crises. Not a situation like this, of course. I would turn down a client like this. This guy can get fucked all the way. But fixing a problem like this is very big. It's very intense. It's very costly, and it's very time consuming. So there's a few things we want to unpack here. First is how to avoid a situation like this. I'm reminded of a movie called Liar, Liar. I wish I had the clip here with me today, but it was when Jim Carrey, who was a defense attorney in this movie, his client calls him and talks about a problem he was having. He's like, "What do you think I should do?" And he's like, "Stop breaking the law, asshole." Right? And so that's really your first step. Don't do dumb shit. But the other side of this is, we're all human. And while this particular example is egregious and there's no legitimate excuse for this behavior, we have to be honest and admit there are cases where you're going to lose your cool. We see it happen all the time. We've all lost our composure at some point. And so you have to always assume that somebody's recording you somewhere. Could be somebody with a phone. It could be security cameras. It could be a Ring camera. There's so many different ways that you could be recorded, and you just always have to be aware of that and kind of use that as a check, right? When you start feeling yourself get hot about something, use that fact that there's a camera potentially anywhere at any given time to help get your shit back in check, right? You need to maintain composure. You need to act professional and not lose your shit, right? So this is a great example of how that goes wrong. And it's just something that we all need to be aware of in today's society, because the reality is there are cameras everywhere recording pretty much everything at all times. So that's an interesting segue into our next topic, which is why you absolutely need to own your name, your personal name, as a domain name. So let's talk about why that is. First of all, we're going to unpack several reasons, but the thing is, even if you don't need it right now, you absolutely will at some point in time, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business of some sort, eventually you will need a website up on your name as a domain. Okay. Now, this is a really effective, proactive reputation management strategy. So if you don't own your name as a domain, that means somebody else can buy it. So what I would recommend is you absolutely buy your name, even if you don't have the time or the resources to build a website on it. At the absolute very least, buy that domain name. Now, we just picked up a domain name I think it was a day ago, for a little situation that one of our clients was dealing with. And this was actually the name of the person who is in the middle of defaming this client. So we now own that defamer's personal name as a domain. Now, we'll talk a little bit about how things like this can play out, both in a good way and in a bad way. So I'll give you an example that, frankly, to this day, this occurred several years ago, but this still amuses the shit out of me. There was somebody who ripped me off to the tune of, it was a low 5-figure amount. And I noticed that he did not own his name as a domain name. Now, this individual also had a quite lengthy criminal record. We're not talking, a DUI or a shoplifting charge. We're talking multiple felony armed robbery charges. So what I ended up doing was putting up a website on this individual's name domain, right? First name, last name.com. Put this domain up, published all of the news, which wasn't really showing up in the search results at that time. I published all of the news about this individual's criminal record, very lengthy. And then within there, linked to all of those news articles. Now, we also took it a step further. We leveraged some SEO to make sure that that name ranked, and then also make sure that all of those other media entries also ranked. Basically, what ended up happening was we filled the first 3 pages of Google with this individual's backstory, his history of crime sprees and criminal endeavors. And it had a huge impact on him, so much so that it stayed there for years, by the way. But eventually, he ended up having to hire some other PR firm. He ended up on some TV show, some TV show basically telling the story about his crime spree and trying to kind of paint this redemption arc. But, I know that cost him a lot of money, both in lost business by people seeing this. He was in the type of business where you would go into people's homes. Obviously, people don't want a guy with a criminal history of armed robbery going into their houses. So that had a huge impact on his business. And then also the other aspect of, whatever he had to do to hire some other PR firm to get him out there and get the show landed to try and downplay some of the impact of this. I checked it out a few days ago, in fact, and there's still a ton of this stuff out here ranking for his name. So it is still to this day having an impact. So you want to avoid that if you end up in a situation where somebody's upset at you in some way, whether it's a PR crisis or just to be proactive in general, right? That prevents somebody else from buying your name as a domain, right? And this is important in other ways too, because your domain, not in and of itself, but if it has a website on it, plays a big role in earning what's called a knowledge panel. So if you go to a search engine, Google in particular, if you go to Google and you search for the name of somebody who is famous and prominent, it's typically going to show you across the top of the screen. It'll show you some images. Then down the side, it may have some, it'll have like a link to a website. It'll have some links to social media profiles. That will show up if you search for my name, if you search for celebrities, if you search for major business people that you may already know, like, and trust. You'll see this for prominent people. Your domain with a website on it, if it's configured properly, will help to earn that knowledge panel. So that knowledge panel is not a thing that you can apply for. It's not a thing that you can request in any way. That is triggered algorithmically through a combination of things. Media features being part of it. There's some other algorithmic features. And then there's some things in your website, if you put a website up on your domain, that will then help to trigger that knowledge panel. So it's really important from that perspective, right? So let's talk a little bit about how to do this. As far as the registrar goes, which is the place that you register that domain through, that doesn't really matter all that much. There's some that I like, there's some that I hate, but at the end of the day, go where you're comfortable. I tend to avoid GoDaddy these days, even though they're probably one of the most well-known. I've got some issues with them, but from a technical perspective, they're okay, they're fine. I use Namecheap for a bunch of our domains. I like that because they do offer private registration for no extra charge, which a lot of the others, including GoDaddy, will actually charge a fee to make your registration private, which means whatever address you put on there is going to be out there available to the public. So if you're using your home address to register this domain, you don't want that information out there. I mean, people can find it one way or the other if they want to, but you don't want to just put it out there and make it easy for all the crazies out there to find your home address. So I use Namecheap. Prices are fine. They offer the free privacy. But from a technical perspective, it doesn't really matter where you go. Ideally, you want to do a .com, but you can also look at some of the non-traditional TLDs. Now, when we say non-traditional TLD, what we're talking about is the extension, the part after the period. So you've got .com, which is the original, and there, of course, are other what we would call traditional TLDs like .org, .net, things like that. But there's been a lot more domain extensions that have been created over the years, .me, .pro, .club, things like that. And if you go to, I mentioned Namecheap earlier. If you go to Namecheap, you can actually put in a search for a particular domain and then see all of the extensions that are available for that particular exact domain. And it's worth looking at some of these other non-traditional TLDs because there are some different things you can do with them from a branding perspective. There might be different approaches you want to use them for. From a search engine optimization perspective, and I don't know the reason for this, but I have noticed, and many other people have noticed and commented on this as well, that the non-traditional TLDs, for whatever reason, tend to rank higher in the search engines. Now, it also used to be the case that non-traditional TLDs were cheaper when it comes to PPC. I think particularly with Google. I don't know if it was with any other platform. I don't know if that's still the case, but certainly worthwhile to grab a couple of the non-traditional TLDs. I own my name, jeremyknopf.com. I also own several non-traditional TLDs for my name as well. If you're going to go with a non-traditional, though, it's important that you go with a shorter extension. I was looking at the domain of somebody that we've been talking to about working together recently, and they had a .capital extension, which is kind of interesting from a branding perspective, but I feel like it's less than ideal because, first of all, a lot of people aren't familiar with some of these non-traditional TLDs. So does that really pass what's called the radio test, right? If you're talking about this on the radio or on a podcast or, whether it's audio only or video, is that something that somebody listening is going to really connect the dots on, right? I'm obviously very technical. I've been involved with the internet since like the 90s. So to me, a lot of these things are second nature, but to a lot of other people, they don't even know that anything other than, the .coms, .nets, .orgs exist. So you want to think about who your audience is when you're picking these domains, but also the shorter extensions are going to be better. Now, I will say, I mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily have to do anything with the site right now. You can just get the domain and sit on it. But ideally, it is best to put a website up now, even if you can't make it look as pretty as you want. You can't create all the content for it that you want to do. It's good to get it up there because then it will already be, obviously it's going to take time, but you're ahead of the curve. You've already got it in there. You've got it indexed in Google. Google can start finding and ranking the content. And you can also set up Google Search Console, Bing Search Console, or I think they call it Bing Webmaster Tools. And then analytics of some sort, all of these things where you can start seeing how the search engines are seeing your site and start making improvements to get things to rank. Now, if you do this before you need it, when you've got time and you can kind of whittle away at it a little bit at a time, you're going to be in a lot stronger position because you can kind of take a little step, every day or every week or whatever, as opposed to you're in the middle of a crisis and now you have to drop everything to get this up, get this ranking. So when you've got it ranking for your name, this can be really powerful because this is now an asset that you control. And so that's going to take up one space in the search engine results. So if somebody searches for your name, that's one less negative thing that could potentially be out there. And since it is your name and somebody would potentially be searching for your name, it's going to have a tremendous advantage when it comes to ranking. All right. When you do this, you also want to make sure to set up schema as well. Now, schema is something that nobody's going to see. This is strictly on the back end. It's code. Basically, it comes in a JSON format. Basically, it's like a JavaScript that search engines can read. And they use this to connect what they call entities. So people, places, things, stuff like that. So this is something that helps a search engine understand that this website on this domain is about you as a person. Now, you don't have to be crazy with code. You don't have to go in there and program anything. There are plugins. If you're running a website on WordPress, which you should, I think it's a great platform, despite all of the drama that I've covered in the Matt Mullenweg PR crisis over the last, 6 months or so. I still think WordPress is the best platform out there for a website. And there are plugins for WordPress that will enable you to add the schema into your website. Now, once you do that, you want to put the appropriate schema on your website. And I think we'll probably do a workshop in the Spartan community at some point, kind of walking you all through that for those of you who are members of the community. But it's a pretty simple process. You don't have to be technical at all. And it does go a long way in helping with that knowledge panel that we talked about, right? When you search for somebody's name and it comes up where it's got the images and the little sidebar. This has a big impact. So do this, buy that domain name, and start working to build a site, get it ranked, and then you'll have that asset for when the time comes, and hopefully the time never comes, right? Hopefully you're never in a PR crisis. But if you end up in that situation, you'll be in a lot stronger position if you've already got this up and running, and then it's just a matter of adding some stuff to further boost that. All right, next up, we're going to talk about how to leverage publicity in your marketing to become a recognized authority. Now, this is really important because most people drop the ball here. Most people, they'll get featured in the media, and you've seen these posts a million times. Hey, I'm honored to be featured in Entrepreneur, Inc., or Forbes, whatever it is. Blah, 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 a little blurb about the article. And then that's the end of it. They don't do anything else with it after that. And that is a huge missed opportunity because you took all that effort to make that happen. And that's huge. Most people never get featured in the media. So if you do get featured in the media, this is something you need to leverage the hell out of. And there's a lot of ways you could do that, which we're about to break down. So basically what happens here is the Pareto principle applies. If you're not familiar with that term, that is basically the 80-20 rule. So in this case, 80% of the impact from your media feature is not going to come when it first goes live. It's going to come from what you do with it after the fact. And there's a million things we could do about it. And when you do this properly, it does three things. One is that it keeps you in front of your audience. It also trains the social media algorithms to show your content to more people. And in the process of all of that, it creates an outsized perception of your brand, right? It looks to people like you're doing big things everywhere all the time, and you're constantly going to be showing up. it makes you look more authoritative. So let's talk about what we're going to do with these media features. So obviously the first thing we're going to do is share it on social media. We've all done this whenever we've gotten featured, where, you'll share that post talking about being featured and, how proud you are, this, that, and the other. But a couple of things I want to touch on about how we do that. So what I like to do is I will go on a phone, because then you get that nice tight little mobile layout, and I'll snap a screenshot of that feature. And now you've got this really good image that works well on social media. I'll go and I'll, crop that properly, right? I make it a nice little square, or maybe slightly taller than a square, depending on how they've got it laid out. But now you can share this, and people are going to be able to see exactly what it is. And it's very clear, it's very concise, and you don't fall into the trap of basically suppressing the reach of that post. Because what happens is when you put a link in the post directly, the platforms, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, it will suppress that so that fewer people see it, because these social media platforms want to keep more people on the platform, right? They don't want to send you off to another site. So if you've got a link in the post itself, they're going to show that post to fewer people. This is why we post the image and whatever write-up we want to add with it. And then we go to the comments and we then put the link in the comments. If it's a video, so say you're on TV, you'll want to post that video natively rather than posting a link to YouTube. So take the video itself and upload it to Facebook, or upload it to Instagram, upload it to Twitter, X, whatever, rather than a link to a platform like YouTube or Vimeo, wherever else it may be. This, again, by posting it natively, you're basically avoiding that algorithmic filter that suppresses your reach. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to start making more content out of this. So if you take the right approach, it's really easy to make dozens of pieces of content out of any piece of publicity. So I'll give you a few different examples here. So the first thing is, regardless of what that piece of publicity is, whether it's a TV segment, whether it's an article that you were quoted in, or an article that you wrote, you're going to say whatever you're going to say, but there's a million more things that you could say. Even if you had a chance to sit down and write a 5,000-word article, I promise you there's still a ton more that you could and would want to say. So what you can do is, the same way that you posted that screenshot and then a link in the comments, what you can do later is write up text posts about all the things that you didn't get a chance to talk about, and each individual topic, right? Every topic is going to have multiple little facets to it. So you could probably come up with easily a dozen to 24 text posts of just things that you wish you had a chance to talk about in that article. Take it deeper, expand on it. So that's 12 to 24 pieces of content just as text posts. Then you can cover any kind of additional details that you didn't even get a chance to bring up at all, right? So in the first example, we're going deeper on what we already said, but now we go and we start finding all the tangential topics that are connected to this, and we start talking about them. Again, text posts. Then we go through that same process on both sides with video posts, right? We can go and sit down and make those into shorts, or, maybe they end up being a little bit longer, right? Could be 2 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be 20 minutes, just depends on how you want to do it. But you've now got, if you do it right, each of these paths can turn into a few dozen pieces of content. So now we're approaching hundreds of pieces of content pretty quickly. And then you can also keep track of this. So obviously this is something that works really well with evergreen content, but then think about this. Whatever that topic is, there are going to be ways to connect that to other topics that are trending in the news, whether it be, just general news or something that's industry specific. So now what you can do is you can connect that media feature with something new that's going on. Maybe your original piece was about a law or a regulation in your industry. And then let's say that there's some new law or regulation, or there's some changes to that law or regulation. The BOI one was a perfect example of that. The Corporate Transparency Act, beneficial ownership information, which Carol Roth talked a lot about for several months when that was a hot topic. And every time something new would come out, she could share one of her pieces of media, one of her pieces of publicity, and then add whatever new information there was. And it just further reinforced her credibility and leveraged that authority status that being featured in that media outlet brought. There's also other things you can do with the various types of formats. So we talked about text, we talked about video. You can also do images. So my Jeremy's PR PSA is a good example of that. So you see these where I share these little blurbs about, something you should do or something you shouldn't do when it comes to PR. You could do the same thing with the quotes from your article or the little pieces of wisdom that you shared. If you take a single article, let's say you were quoted, maybe just one paragraph, you can probably break that up into a few different quotes of, 2 to 3 sentences and turn those into individual quote graphics. And this is something that you can then share indefinitely. And this works really well on certain platforms, works really well on X, works really well on Instagram, but it works everywhere. So add the image format to this as well, and you're going to end up with a whole plethora of content. So a single piece of publicity, if you follow this format, if you follow this framework, will end up turning into several dozen pieces of content. And as you start to build that up into a library, you will have a mountain of content that you can continually share on social media. It will continually be different. And then you're going to stay in front of your audience. You're going to train the social media algorithms to show your content to more people, and you're going to create a more authoritative image of your brand. All right. Then there's some other things we could do with this as well. So there's multiple channels. So we talked about social media, but we can also use this on our website. So obviously you'll want to put this on if it's a major media outlet, you want to put that logo on your homepage, right? Featured in Entrepreneur, featured in Inc. Magazine, featured in Fox Business, whatever it is, and kind of have a running list of those. And I like to do what I call top grading, where regularly you're going in and just selecting out the lower authority ones and just making sure that the ones that you do list are the most authoritative, most recognized logos. You also want to put a link to the piece on your press page. So, and your press page, by the way, should be linked to from your main navigation. And those logos that I mentioned a second ago, those should also link to your press page. So what I like to do here is, for a digital feature, of course, we'll put a link to wherever that media outlet is, right, to that specific feature. If it's a video, what I like to do is put it up on my YouTube channel and then embed that in your page, right, in your press page. Now they can go to your press page, they can click play and watch that, but all those views are counting on YouTube, which helps your video to rank better. And then you're also getting the benefit of, since it's on YouTube, you're now potentially getting people who are going to find it just through YouTube's normal search and feed and all that stuff. So huge opportunity here. But let's also look at email. You guys should have some kind of email list that you're leveraging. You're sending out messages to your prospects and your clients. When you're featured in the media, tell people that. That's going to help build your credibility, help build your authority. But then also all of this content that we talked about creating, all the stuff, the dozens of pieces that you can make for social, you can use this stuff in your email as well. You can use it in presentations. So there's various topics you're going to be talking about. You're going to be sharing your knowledge and expertise. Well, that's the same kind of knowledge and expertise that you have shared in presentations. So now when you bring up a topic, right, let's say I talk about how to leverage publicity in your marketing. I can then cite in that presentation the article that I was featured in Entrepreneur talking about that topic. So now here I am. Not only am I sharing my knowledge from stage, which already creates an air of authority, but now I'm also leveraging that media outlet to further increase my authority. Podcasts are another great way. So I was on Mike Hambright's podcast just, I think it was Monday or Tuesday this week. and we were talking about something, and he had asked me a particular question. And at this point, I can't remember what it was, but I basically said something to the effect of, oh, well, that's a great question. And it's actually something I covered in depth in one of my articles over at Entrepreneur Magazine. And then I kind of paraphrased what I said in that article. I would come to think of it, it was an article about how to respond to a PR crisis. So in that interview, whether somebody's watching the video version of it or just listening to the audio version, they're now getting that additional authority that comes from me being featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, right? The magazine came to me asking me to write an article about this particular topic. That improves my authority status with the audience. And you can use it in sales conversations as well. So let's say they ask you a question, and whatever that question is, let's say you were featured in the media about it. You can say, well, that's a great question, Steve. And I actually was interviewed by Forbes magazine about that. And basically, here's what I said, and now you've answered it. But you slipped in that feature from Forbes in a subtle way, right? You're doing it in a way that further boosts your authority, demonstrates your expertise, and you get to leverage the authority from that media outlet. And the cool thing about this is that it also helps to build brand search for your name. And what I mean by that is people going into a search engine and searching for your name specifically. And this is important because branded search plays a big role in a site generating traffic for that term. So if you've got a lot of people searching for your name, that's a good sign to Google. And that is actually something that does play a role in your knowledge panel that we talked about earlier. But on top of that, if people are searching for your name, and then also you've got your website on your first name, last name.com, and you've got great content there and it's optimized for your name, then your site is going to start ranking for that a lot more effectively. By people searching for your name, that's basically a signal to Google that you are authoritative and you're important in this world. So do this, and it's going to drive up your brand search. But on top of that, it's also going to have a huge impact on your overall brand awareness and your authority status for that matter. So what we're going to do here is we're going to close up with Jeremy's PR PSA for the day. And that is, the best reputation management strategy is to proactively build and rank the right digital assets before you need them. So this is why we talked about buying your domain, starting to build and rank that website. But we also want to look at some of the other assets. So, you're featured in the media. You want to get those ranking as high in the search results as you can. You want to get your social media profiles up and running and active so that they'll rank. You want to get a YouTube channel up. You want to get all of these assets up and running before you actually need them, because they are going to help you to build and expand your business, but they will also be critical in managing a PR crisis if anything bad ever happens. So that's a wrap for today, guys. If you have not joined the Facebook group, Public Relations Declassified yet, hit that QR code up there. If you just pull that up with your camera, it will pull right up. Chrissy, I see we've got somebody in the waiting room. Did somebody have a question that we wanted to touch on here? We got Tatiana, it looks like. Chrissy, you're muted.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if she has a question, but she did pop in halfway through. So I wasn't sure if you invited her earlier and just didn't tell me.
Okay. All right. Good to go. Tatiana, I'm going to pull you up if you want to ask a question. And if not, that's cool too. You are live. Was there something you wanted to ask or add? I think we're having a technical issue here. So we'll go ahead and call that a wrap for today. Tatiana, if you can hear me and
can you hear?
Hold on. What were you saying?
Yeah, I started to watch on Facebook Live, and when I joined the link to this stream, I just said awesome stuff, and I would love to have this private workshop inside the community.
Awesome. Yeah.
And a question, so should I go ahead and buy my own domain and probably domain for this Florida con artist to make some publicity for her?
Yes. First of all, for that Florida con artist, absolutely buy her name. I've got all kinds of things we're going to have fun with on that one. For your name, absolutely buy it. But for your situation, I would approach this slightly differently than for everybody else. And I think you know the reason why. Do you? Are we on the same page?
Maybe.
I think the chance.
I guess I'll reach out.
I think the chance of anybody spelling your name is about that big. So what I would recommend we do is, yes, absolutely buy the domain, put up a website and rank to it. But then also, and I'm not going to say it on air because I don't want anyone else to get it, the moniker that you and I talked about, buy that as a domain as well and forward that to your full name as a domain. And then what will happen is you can give that moniker out, that such and such.com. And if somebody types it in, which is easy to remember, then they will get directed to your actual first name, last name.com. Does that make sense?
A little bit. I think I'll reach out for more.
Okay. Yeah.
Information. But yeah, I got the idea. That's great.
Beautiful.
I'm so happy I popped up at the right time.
Yes. Perfect timing. And while you're here, let's everybody in the group give Tatiana a little clap here, a little congratulations. She just recently landed her first column at Newsmax. So y'all are going to be seeing her wonderful information that she likes to share about real estate coming up in Newsmax in her very own column here shortly.
That's amazing. And today I have my first podcast interview.
Is this with Paul? Beautiful.
Yeah, that's with Paul.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing that one. When that one comes up, we'll share that in the group, and maybe we'll even use that as an example. You're solid on the video, so maybe we'll see if there's any mistakes, and we'll use that as an example. But I think you're going to do really smooth on it.
Well, thank you. I'll do my best.
My pleasure. All right, Tatiana, I will talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And for everybody else, we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. Like I said, if you guys are not already in the Facebook group, I would love it if you would join. And if there's anybody that you can think of that can benefit from this information that we share in here, I would love it if you would invite them. And that'll be a wrap for today, everyone. Look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. And that's a wrap for today.